wisdom,
prudentia,
justice,
justitia,
temperance,
temperantia,
courage.
fortitudo.
Applying ancient philosophy to modern life, this is the Sunday Stoic.
Thanks for joining the Sunday Stoic podcast. We'll talk a little bit about leadership today from a Stoic perspective. Before we jump into that, thank you, Lucas, for joining as a patron on patreon.com/SundayStoic. And thanks to all my other patrons for helping to support the show, making it possible to afford the bandwidth to keep old episodes online and to keep new ones coming out. My life just got a whole lot busier. I hope yours is going well. My semester just started, and so I'm teaching a lot of classes and trying to keep up with that. But I plan on keeping the podcast going, even though life is chaotic right now. I wanted to talk this week about leadership, as it's something that's on my mind a little bit because I get put in charge of various committees. I'm in charge of a bunch of grad students and getting them ready to teach. And also, of course, you hear the news about leaders of various nations and how they act, and some you might respect, some you may not. And I thought we'd look at what the Stoics have to say. In particular, this week we're going to focus on a reading by Musonius Rufus. If you remember, Musonius was the teacher of Epictetus. A paraphrased summary of Musonius Rufus, number 8, that kings should also study philosophy. Who knows better what is good for people and what is evil, and who should be helped and who should be protected than the philosopher? Therefore, a king should also study philosophy. A king must be just. He should study philosophy. It is far more disgraceful for a king to be ignorant of such matters than a private citizen. A king must also exercise self-control and to demand self-control of his subjects. For wantonness can ruin a kingdom. How could a king do this if he has not practiced ahead of time? Philosophy teaches us to be above pleasure and greed. It trains us to have shame and control of our tongue. It also produces discipline, courtesy, and other virtuous actions. How could a king be fearless and bold if he lacked courage? Only if he knows that death and hardship are not evil through the study of philosophy. Kings must also be unmatched in reason. Otherwise, they can easily be misled and believe in falsehoods. A philosopher is able to debate effectively, something that a king also must be able to do with confidence. A good king is a philosopher, and a philosopher is a kingly person. One cannot be a good king unless he is a good man. And a philosopher is naturally the best choice to govern. A philosopher is intelligent, disciplined, noble-minded, efficient at putting plans into effect, patient, courageous, and humane. It is enough to rule only over oneself, to be kingly. The Discourses of Epictetus, Book 3, Chapter 7, to the administrator of the free cities who was an Epicurean. But I can throw into prison any man whom I please. You can do the same thing with a stone, but I can beat with sticks whom I please. You can do the same thing to an ass. This is not a governing of men. Govern us as rational animals. Show us what is profitable to us, and we will follow it. Show us what is unprofitable, and we will turn away from it. Make us imitators of yourself, as Socrates made men imitators of himself. For he was like a governor of men, who made them subject to him, their desires, their aversions, their movements towards an object, and their turning away from it. Do this, and do not do this. If you do not obey, I will throw you in prison. This is not the governing of men like rational animals. But I, as Zeus has ordained, so act. If you do not act so, you will feel the penalty. You will be punished. But what will be the punishment? nothing else than not having done your duty. You will lose the character of fidelity, modesty, propriety. Do not look for greater penalties than these.
Arrogant, cruel, ineffective, mean-spirited, ignorant, vindictive. These are all terms that you might use to describe a leader who rules through force, but not through example. Not through good example, anyway. Musonius Rufus recommends that kings be philosophers first. Why philosophers? Because philosophers know what true good and true evil actually are. They have studied philosophy, they have studied logic, and can make good choices, well thought out choices based on reality, not on feeling, not on instinct, but on well thought out review of the facts. He even goes on to say that it is disgraceful for someone who's a leader to be ignorant of such things, far more disgraceful than if just you or I were ignorant of these things. So if you're shooting to be a leader at work or in politics in your nation, you really want to try to work on being an excellent human being before trying to lead others. A king would have to have self-control so they don't splurge and build rooms of gold while their subjects are starving to death. And it says, how can a king do this if they have not practiced ahead of time? It's too late to become a philosopher king once you're king. You have to be a philosopher first, well practiced at self-restraint, at wisdom, etc., before you're in front of the crowd, leading the crowd. We have to be above pleasure and above greed, and to control our tongue, and to have shame. Why do we need shame? When you have shame, it keeps you from doing really bad things that you would later regret, right? You'd have shame. If you have shame, it's kind of a self-check on your activities. You don't do things in public that will bring shame upon yourself. More importantly, you don't do things that, once again, shame is an internal punishment, right? Someone can shame you, but it doesn't matter if you don't yourself have internal shame, right? So shame, not meaning you react to what others say, but you yourself react to what you have done. You can say, I shouldn't have done that. I feel so bad about that. A leader would then have courtesy and be virtuous in all their actions. A leader would also know to be bold if they were a philosopher. They could be brave because they know that death is not an evil. That doesn't mean that you just waste life, though. It just means that when necessary, you are courageous. And remember that using that faculty of reason separates us from the animals. It's a very important quality that we can't forget to work on as Stoics. And a king would know how to avoid falsehoods. They would see through pseudoscience and they would see through claims made by others that don't hold up to scrutiny, and they would not base policy on nonsense. They would be a good debater because of that, because they're well practiced in philosophy. And I really like the last statement here. A good philosopher is kingly, and a good king is a philosopher, right? And when it's all said and done, you don't have to be an actual king, because if you rule yourself, it makes you kingly. You are king-like if you are able to rule your own kingdom. And what is your own kingdom? It is your choice. It is your faculty of reason, your ability to choose. You yourself are your own kingdom. So rule yourself and you are kingly. All of us are leaders in some way. I myself supervise several graduate students. I'm on several committees. And I know I don't live up to the philosopher standard yet, right? But I'm trying. But it's important that no matter where you are on your journey, that if you are some kind of leader, that you work on these things, that you try not to fly off the handle, that you use reason to make decisions, that you don't get greedy, that you, look out for those around you. You don't fly off the handle yelling. You're not ignorant and arrogant. And when you're choosing leaders, I'm not going to tell you who to vote for when you're voting, but I myself need to remember to not make political party the first thing I look for. It's to look for the person of character, the person who has a strong, virtuous character. And maybe there are no good choices. What do we do then? I don't know. What's the philosophical thing to do? To not vote, or to pick the lesser of two evils? To vote for a third candidate that, at least in the United States, would have very little chance of winning? That's something that you'll have to decide, and we all have to decide on our own, depending on the circumstance. But look for character in others, but more importantly, look for character in yourself. Develop your own character so that you are worthy to lead others if the opportunity should arise. Carpe diem.
Thank you for listening to the Sunday Stoic. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review the Sunday Stoic on iTunes. Become a member of the Sunday Stoic team, earn rewards, and be an integral part of the show by becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/SundayStoic. Contact the show by emailing sundaystoic@gmail.com or by leaving a voicemail at 501-503-3132. To find out more, visit www.sundaystoicpodcast.com. And as Steve always says, Carpe Diem.